This is Tech Addicts.
This week we're talking about everything Pixel, the 6A, the 7, 7 Pro, Watch, Buds Pro and tablet. Also the Sony Xperia 1 Mark IV and the 10 Mark IV, some new headphones and a new Sony smartwatch, the Honor Magic 4 Pro and TED Talks Pocket TVs. Hello and welcome to the Tech Addicts Podcast. I am Gareth Miles, the host of the Tech Addicts Podcast, and this is Ted Salmon, the other host of the Tech Addicts Podcast. Ted?
Hello. Lovely to be back with you again this weekend, everyone. I hope you have a lovely time in this blazing sun and heat. Actually, it's the weather forecast right at the top of the show is that it's quite warm today, but we're expecting rain. Hurrah!
Ah, right, yes, we're getting rain later on as well, which is really annoying because I bought a new barbecue made by, I said Weber, and the person out behind the counter corrected me and said, no, it's Weber. And I said, there's only one B in it, would it not be Weber?
Yeah.
And he said, no, it's Weber, and then continued to serve me. But I'm not going to listen to him because I believe it's Weber. And I built it all yesterday and was looking forward to doing a barbecue today, but no. For the first time in a week, it's going to rain tonight at about 6 o'clock.
Don't let it stop you. Get a big
umbrella. I don't
umbrella.
want to get my new barbecue wet. It's
whacking great big umbrella. That's what you want, or a what are those things called? A gazebo.
I could do that, but it's still going to rain, and there might be one droplet hits my beautiful new barbecue. It's huge as well. It might have trouble fitting under a gazebo too.
Yeah. I see. Anyway. Well, I hope you have a lovely time the next time you use it.
The first time I use it.
Yeah.
But I suppose at the same time, I don't want to put dirty food on it, because food has like oil and grease and stuff in it. So I'll maybe...
you sound like my great uncle. He had this lovely car, and he wouldn't take it out of the garage unless the forecast said it was absolutely no chance of. For his whole life of having this car, it never had a single drop of rain on it. And if it was if it was going to rain, he would get on the bus. He would actually just not use it.
Wow. Okay. I suppose that saves on fuel costs. I'm guessing this wasn't at a time when the fuel was as high as it is now.
This was in the 1960s, and it was a Vanden Plas, Austin 1300 Vanden Plas. It was a lovely car with wood panelling, gorgeous.
Ooh, gosh, yeah, the Vanden Plas were nice cars.
Yeah.
What I could do is I could use my old barbecue to cook all the food, and then whenever people come out to sit down, I'll just open up the new barbecue and go, I will serve this off this for you.
Or you could just give them photographs of it. So, this is my lovely new barbecue, which is in the garage.
True, yes. Yeah. Well, it is actually sitting in the garage because I don't want to put it outside with the cover on it, in case the cover may leak around the stitching and things. I don't trust stitching. My last barbecue got rusty and started to fall apart after only 5 years, and I didn't keep it outside. It was supposed to be showerproof, but it wasn't. So,
dreadful.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, so there we go. We'll get some rain anyway, so a day for staying in.
It is, absolutely. Although the sun is splitting the skies at the moment. Yeah. All right. So, going into feedback and on contributions, we had a look a couple of weeks ago at some of our stats, and we noticed a little thing pop up in South America that showed Colombia and Bolivia, and I investigated further and discovered that we have a listener, just one listener in Colombia and just one listener in Bolivia. So Ted and I would like to take the opportunity to say hello to the person in Colombia and the person in Bolivia that is listening to this podcast right now.
Brilliant.
You're very special.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. We think you're great.
And we hope you're not a bot.
Yes. Well, I'm hoping the stats filter out the bots. I can't imagine that there's only one bot in Colombia and one in Bolivia. I believe they're real people.
They're probably expats. the people that came from Belfast and Chichester, and they are out there and have tuned in. But no, that's really good, isn't it? It's great to be able to get statistics like that and just say hello to people.
Yes, yes, it is, absolutely. And I have visited Colombia in my lifetime, and it's
Ah.
a lovely country. I haven't been to Bolivia. But, if you have a spare bedroom, I quite happily fly over and spend a weekend in Bolivia, and then back home again and enjoy your wonderful country.
Very good.
Okay, Jeremy Harpham has also written in on USB Type-C and proprietary chargers, which is something that we were discussing last week.
Oh, yeah.
Ted?
Yeah, we were. We were saying on the back of my Oppo experiment with the fast charger about how difficult it is to get. Is USB really universal? That was the thing, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. And I think our basic conclusion was, well, I think you were saying it wasn't, and I was saying that it was.
Yeah.
Because you can, even though it's not charging at the full rate, you can still achieve a
Yes,
charge
yes,
off a
yes.
cable. Yeah. So he says, trying to think the other way round, for example, my OnePlus and Xiaomi rapid chargers work as standard USB Type-C chargers with other devices.
Which is what you said.
Well, yes, because Jeremy's an intelligent man. The dedicated
Like you.
cables for the super fast charging were so that the thermal management could be in the powered brick and not in the phone. I believe USB power delivery cables now do something similar. Do you agree?
Oh
Mr.
yeah,
Simon?
power delivery PD. I think Jeremy's probably right that the whole PD thing does kind of give you some sort of standard over and above the base standard of USB. But yeah, it's a bit of a black art by the sounds of it, and it's a bit complicated. And if you do want to get anything further than universal, basic universal, then you do need to think about it, like I had to with the Oppo and the Super VoIP, which is fantastic when it's working. But you've got to carry, if you want to get that, you've got to carry the brick with you, and you've got to carry the cable with you, making it even worse. Which is okay if you've got a bag, if you're going to work and you've got a pilot's case or something. But if you're just going down the cinema, it's not so good.
Well, you also left out you had to take the phone with you too.
Oh yeah, bugger.
That's three things you have to carry. Oh, grief.
Yes.
All right. Well, yeah, I think going forward, I guess it'll settle at some point because people have to sell extras and make a little bit of extra money that way. Apple is a perfect example of how they've managed to monetize the whole plug not in the box thing, and it's very controversial and stuff. So
Have you seen no, we'll come to that in a minute. But have you seen that on the new Sony devices? They're not even putting a cable in the box. The phone, no brick, no charging brick, and not even a cable. No earplugs, nothing. The box must be tiny because all it's got inside it is a phone.
Maybe there isn't even a box. A plastic
bag.
bag, possibly, which you'll have to pay the levy on.
15p.
Yeah. Well, anyway, moving on. Gavin has written in about Google I/O, which we happened to see over the course of the week. Ted, you said you were going to watch it. Did you manage that?
I did, yeah. I sat
whole
through
thing?
the whole thing. It was like 2 hours long.
And you didn't garrote yourself at any point?
I didn't. I don't know. There's something about Google that just. I mean, I would never have sat and watched any other. Well, having said that, the other week I did sit and watch the. What was it? The Redmi? No, not Redmi. Realme? No. What was it I watched?
The
It was only.
Xiaomi.
It was only about half an hour long, but I did watch it. It was the release of some.
That's all right. That's an episode of EastEnders. You could tolerate that without murdering yourself, but
Anyway, Google stuff I just tend to be transfixed with, and I mean you do zone out when they go off and do these stupid videos of people doing this, that, and the other, and they cut to some pre-recorded thing, and you kind of zone out at that stage. But generally speaking, I'm in there, yeah.
well, okay. But I suppose at certain points for very small periods of time. They did announce new pieces of hardware, which was very exciting, and we got to see at least 12 seconds of the Pixel 7 and the Pixel 7 Pro in this 2.5 hour epic that they produced.
Was it 2.5?
I was about that. I don't know. I didn't watch it. I was off enjoying my life.
It was at least 2 hours. I don't know. I can't tell you if it was more, but I can remember it. Anyway, do carry on.
Well, it is the worrying thing that if it's something 2 hours long, that somewhere like Engadget or one of the YouTube outfits can go and condense down to 10 minutes for the highlights. Yeah. You got to wonder why they go to that extra level.
Yeah, it's all about hyping everyone up, with their own employees sitting in the audience. I must admit, the audience, clapping every 5 seconds is really annoying. And the presenter, whoever it is, has to kind of just stop talking while they clap, and then they smile and wait for them to stop clapping, and that just happens.
There is that moment where the presenter waits for a clap and he doesn't get one.
Yeah.
That makes it worthwhile. It's a wee bit uncomfortable. It's like cracking a joke and nobody laughs.
Yeah, the tumbleweed moment.
Yeah, it happens to me all the time on this show. Anyway, so Gavin went on to say there's lots of software stuff. There was. I suppose they have Android 13 and Chrome and stuff like that to
and there's
rabbit
also
on about.
Stuff like the Translate that they were demonstrating, 24 new languages of Google Translate, and demoing that for people with hearing impairments and all that. And that stuff's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And it's an ongoing thing. But I have noticed that Google tend to just... They kind of turn their attention from one thing to the next, and then they forget about it for years until they go back to it. It's like we're going to be touching on something that is being updated in Google Keep. I was a bit shocked to find out it's 7 years old.
Yeah.
And it's getting a particular feature that I can't believe it hasn't had.
Yeah,
for a long time. Yeah, but what else did you Gavin said?
Gavin Fabiani-Laymond was he put a post up in the group to just give his thoughts really on what was going on here. He says that holistically, it looks like Google are trying to copy Apple with a hardware portfolio of products. Nothing wrong with that, he says. So having a watch and a tablet and everything, just trying to make it Apple-like, which is okay. Laying that aside, though, there was the Pixel 6a announced, which he says is a bit of a bargain at 399 quid. No brainer to just get one. Not the same fingerprint scanner as the
that was
6
me.
Pro
Sorry,
and
I added
6.
that in.
that is true. The reports this week since the event are that they're going to use a different sensor because there's been so many complaints, presumably, because of the 6 and 6 Pro sensor. They're not saying it's better or worse. They're just saying it's a different one. So they're going to put something else in there. So the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro, Google announcing early, means that they can now control the conversation and potential leaks, says Gavin. Also gives people an idea on what's coming and maybe stop some from upgrading to a different brand. I love the aluminium rear strip. I really don't. I disagree with Gav there. I think
I agree with Gav.
awful.
I think he's absolutely right. You're wrong. Wrong.
Okay. Me and Steve against you and Gav then.
That's a fight.
And the Pixel Watch, an Apple Watch clone, shows a ton of promise but needs to look nice on the wrist, says Gav. Pixel Buds Pro look very promising, but competition is ferocious, and it is, isn't it? This whole kind of buds area is really, really ferocious, as he says. There's so much out there and so many things. Week by week by week, there's new stuff coming out. And then a really, really brief look at the Pixel tablet, not coming out till next year. And he, along with other commentators, are saying that it looks like a Nest Hub. Take the screen off a Nest Hub, and you've got this what looks like the tablet thingy. In actual fact, we linked to an article in Android Police, and I didn't realise that there was something that they had said. Oh yeah, the rumoured detachable Nest Hub, which they heard about in spring. I'd not heard about that. But that looks like it's going to be a real product moving forward. So, yeah, thanks, Gav, for your thoughts. And I think we largely agree with you, except on the back aluminium.
No, there was the watch as well, which I think was skipped out there. But it's very much an Apple Watch clone, which is round instead of square, and it shows a ton of promise, but needs to look nice on the wrist.
I read that, you swine. Do try and pay attention at the back.
I didn't notice you did. Okay,
I did. I remember very clearly. Back me up, everyone.
All right. Okay, fair enough. Right, so 14 minutes in. I'll go back and check. Right. Yeah. Did you fancy the watch at all? I think it looks like. Oh, I wouldn't wear that on my wrist.
It looks very. Dare I say that it looks very feminine. I'm probably not allowed to say that these days, but it does look as though it would look very nice on a lady's wrist and not so much a bloke's wrist. But I don't know, the bloke that was on the stage with it on his wrist, it looked like it was odd on him. It looked like the face was too small for the size of the strap, and it just didn't look like a very. But having said that, when you see close-ups of the screen and everything, it looks beautifully made and gorgeous. I mean, it looks very much like Johnny Ive designed it, frankly, and that goes back to what Gav was saying about Apple clones.
Yeah. I would say that both the Pixel Watch and the Apple Watch are not something that I would wear on my wrist. Now, I have to say that I have the TicWatch Ultra Pro 3 here at the moment, which I'm testing and playing with. And it's a pretty chunky watch. It's not too big, but it's a pretty chunky watch, and I'm quite happy to wear it on my wrist. Now, looking at the pictures of the Pixel Watch and comparing it to this chunky monkey on my wrist, I know which one I would pick at the end of the day, because I need my chunkiness. I do.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I would go the other way on that. But what the other rumor about the watch is that they're going to be using an Exynos processor in it, which is 4 years old. Did you see that? A 2018 Exynos processor, which it's all rumor, isn't it? Because Google are purposely not saying anything much about it, so they can do what they like going down the line.
Well, there was one line that I heard the fella say in the Pixel Watch unveiling, and he said that it had an outstanding Wear OS experience. And I wondered how it has an outstanding Wear OS experience whenever Wear OS is just an operating system that operates on so many different watches. And you're going to have watches that have faster processors that run it better. So I think that word outstanding was badly used there. Right. And it should just be maybe similar Wear OS experience, because it's not going to be better than what Samsung are putting out with Wear OS on it, or that TicWatch are putting out with Wear OS on it, because they have faster processors than what you just mentioned.
Everything will just work though with Pixels, and that's what Gav was the point he was making really about the portfolio of products. So even if it's not the latest and greatest in terms of tech spec, the Pixel Watch will work with the Pixel tablet, and it'll work with the Pixel Buds Pro and the Pixel phone just perfectly, and they'll just all tick. They'll all just tick.
The tablet is, I think, one of the most interesting pieces of hardware here. And you mentioned how it looks like it's been pulled off a nest, and I'm wondering if that perhaps there's going to be a dock that comes with it, which is going to be the detachable nest that they're talking about.
Right.
A tablet and docking facility. But the way that they are hoping to bring the whole thing together, as you say, is going to be interesting to see whether or not they manage to get that all out in time for the release. Do we have a release date on these, or is it just fall this year?
What, the tablet?
The tablet watch.
The tablet is next year. So it's going to be it's going to be at least next spring, if not next autumn. The watch is supposed to be in fall, as the Americans would say, in autumn 2022. The 6A is round the corner now, so it's going to come in June. The 7 and 7 Pro are coming in autumn. In the fall, I think that's all, isn't it?
Yeah. The tablet is obviously not finalised hardware, I'm guessing, with those
No.
big white bezels and that plastic back. It's no surprise that they don't want to show off too much. And there's one little camera on the back, for which, on the Google 6A, Google are chucking in a bunch of exciting cameras on a cheap phone. Not cheap phone, but their budget phone. Why wouldn't they have that kind of level of technology on this tablet as well, if it's to be, some sort of centralized Android hub to your life?
Yeah, it's hard to speculate really, because we know so little about it, about most of it really. I do think the 6A though is an interesting prospect, and I'm almost tempted, largely because of the size of the screen. It's a 6.1-inch screen, which is even a bit smaller. It falls between the 4A 5G and the Pixel 5 in terms of size. I felt that the 4A 5G was too big, slightly, and the Pixel 5 was just about right. So I'm hoping that will be in the middle there. It'll be really nice. And 399, I think that's good. The only thing that I'll complain about, no doubt relentlessly, will be the no Qi charging. But everything else I'm okay with. It looks like it's as Gav says, it's a no-brainer just to get one in at that price.
Yeah. No, he's absolutely right. It is a bit of a gutsy move by Google doing this. I think we mentioned this a number of weeks ago when we were talking about the 6 and the Pro, because the 6 was the one that was gaining all the really good reviews, whereas the Pro was getting some mediocre reviews. Mm-hmm. So the 6A could theoretically impact on the sales of the 6, which is the one that is selling quite well.
Right.
So they may just be losing out to a cheaper device.
Maybe, yeah. But then it depends what people want, doesn't it? Like I say, is anyone going to pay £200 more for a Qi charging and slightly better camera or blah blah blah? Just bits and pieces like that. If your budget is tight, then you can do really well for £200 less and save your £200 to spend on something else.
Yeah,
like a barbecue.
It wasn't £200, by the way. It was Pixel Pro territory for that barbecue.
Wow.
So it's all singing, all dancing.
Good grief.
There's a lot to look forward to here with Google, and I'm quite excited to see what happens as this goes forward. I think tablets are exciting at the moment, and Google might be late to the game. And if this hardware that they've showed off is anything to go by, it'll be a somewhat undesirable tablet, whilst the likes of Samsung are just making significant gains.
They have got 12L up their sleeve though, Gareth.
They do, yes. I don't no, that's right. But whenever it boils down to seeing the two things on right now, that tablet, if it was sitting on a shelf beside a Samsung Galaxy S8. There's no competition.
Yeah,
you wouldn't pick up that one from 2012.
No,
you get the S8. It does. I think it might have been The Verge said that it looks like the Samsung Galaxy Tab S series from 2014. And yeah, it's absolutely right. It's just missing that bottom button, the home button that they had in the back, and the touch screen, or the touch sensitive button to the left.
Right. I don't remember that one. What is it? The Tab S?
Yeah, the Tab S 10.1.
Okay.
It had a big, thick white bezel around the outside.
Okay.
It was a lovely tablet in its day with an amazing screen, but to be making that now, whenever Samsung and Apple are making such gorgeous cutting-edge devices, that doesn't cut it. It needs to have a full hardware review done on it.
We shall see what happens, but that's some way off anyway. I'm not quite sure why they teased it, but maybe Gavin's right. It's to stop people jumping brands and saying, we know that's coming now, so we'll hang on. Don't know.
Yeah. All right, so what's happening with Steve and the All About sites?
Oh yeah, they Steve has announced that. I think he was having trouble with Rafe really because Rafe's got a full-time job. Rafe
Hmm.
started the sites off and he built them lovingly by hand and not buying into some other system like WordPress or something. And because he's got a full-time job that's taking all his time up, he's the only person who knows how to do this to keep it going. And apart from starting again, it'll be very difficult. Steve also has got one eye on kind of semi-retirement anyway, and so I think he's just decided enough is enough, and the sites won't go away for the foreseeable, and all of the back stuff from the last 20 years will be kept up there for reference and for searching and all the rest of it. But yeah, enough is enough, and Steve's now moved into these YouTube shorts.
Yeah, yeah, they're good
Which is,
actually.
yeah, it's good for him, I say. It looks quite interesting, and he's done a few of those. And he's got Steve Heinrich to do a front end introduction thingy on it now, so it all looks really like good fun. And he can fire those out at will almost, really quick and easy. And maybe that will change how he does things. But yeah, all about sites end of, I think.
Right. Okay. That's very sad that they were a pinnacle of tech news over the years. They look good and they ran fast.
Yeah,
Well done, Rafe. They're excellent sites, and it'll be sad to see them go.
indeed. Well done,
Wow, May the
chaps.
6th. So long, and thanks for all the fish. Blimey. Yeah, yeah. I suppose
Well,
people have to
in the
retire at some stage, don't we? Imagine there's going to be a
yeah,
world without tech addicts one day.
I
Maybe sooner than
can't
you all think,
can't
actually.
imagine it. But back in the day when I was really into Symbian, particularly, there was all about Windows Phone and all about mobile, which kind of didn't really, it wasn't the same, but all about Symbian. I remember being really, really stuck into. I was right alongside Steve and the gang with every single thing that Nokia were doing and Symbian was doing, and that's I think the heyday of what most people were probably listening to this. Certainly in the groups that we run, most people will remember those times, and they were the good times, the good innovative times where we had interesting devices and interesting
Mm.
developments that were rolling out pretty quickly, and it wasn't all uni slab kind of black triangle rectangles that we get now. So yeah, it's sad to see it go, but I completely understand, and it's done a really really good job over the years. So well done, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very sad to see it go. Yeah. Okay, so moving into the hard line for the hardware, where we have Sony also delivering a few exciting new products for us to chinwag about. The first one is the Xperia 1 4, which has a pretty particular camera on it that may revolutionize the way we take our photographs. I don't know why I said that like Michael Gove. I won't do that again. I apologize. So, yeah. What do you think of this there, Ted? This would be your wheelhouse, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it looks lovely, doesn't it? If you look at the edge design, it's slightly different to the previous the three because it's got this kind of chamfered little bit in it. So it's still got flat edges, but it's got this kind of little kind of groove in it going around it. It looks really nice. They've retained the physical shutter button. They've retained the side-mounted fingerprint scanner. They've retained the Qi charging. They've brought across some of the stuff from the Pro I model, the more expensive one, to make it more of a creator's tool. And actually, one of the complaints that Steve had about the previous model was the optical zoom not really being an optical zoom, and they fixed that. So the 3.5 to 5 times optical zoom actually is, and you could stop at any point in between on those, and you'll still
Mm.
get the proper magnification on that. So there's all that, and apart from that, it's small, bits of tweaks to software. Some of it, as I say, brought across from the Pro I. And lovely AMOLED screen. One of the highlights was that it's got a 50% brighter screen, which was some people complained about the fact that the screen was not bright enough outdoors. In actual fact, I didn't feel as though it was so bad myself, but then I lived most of my life not outdoors. But this one looks like it's got a brighter screen. It's going to cost 1,300 quid though, which is a lot. But Sony are just the only firm that are doing that. They're unique in what they're doing here, in retaining things and making things just stay there. And you could argue that they're bringing out boring rectangular slabs, like we said just now. But actually, there's a lot in here, like the LED notification thingy, the 3.5 millimeter, the vastly reducing chance of getting a micro SD card slot, and all the rest of it. And Sony are just hanging in there, doing their own thing, ignoring everyone else, and I think that's great. I think Sony needs to be applauded for keeping this kind of thing going.
Well, I got to say, on the article that we're linking to on GSM Arena, every single image in that article is something that I want.
Yeah.
Every image of that phone that the fella or whoever it is, there's a fella in the picture, so I'm Peter maybe. It just looks absolutely fantastic, and it does seem like a really bland, boring rectangular phone, but it's got it where it counts, and the interface whenever you're using the camera looks great. Everything's neatly done. You don't have to tap on the settings menu to be able to twiddle with things. You don't have to go across to pro mode or anything. It's just there. You've got auto and lock and autofocus, manual focus, near, infinity. Oh, God, that's lovely.
And that's a new interface as well. The one that I've got, it's got an older interface. It doesn't look quite like that. They've revamped that.
Yeah, I think Google need to do that on Android in general. Bring in a nicer, better interface, because we've got these huge screens, and yes, it's great to be able to get as much information on the screen as possible of the photograph you're taking, but having the controls there, rather than having to set the whole shot up and then go hunting for particular functions, or having to then you set it up in an automatic mode and then realize it's automatic and have to swipe across and find the pro mode. This has a button that just switches between the two. I want that.
They're taking different paths, though, aren't they? Sony are appealing to an audience that wants to do the things that you just described, like you and I. Whereas Google are sticking with the thing that says people don't want to do that. The average person on the street wants to point their camera at their phone at something, take a photograph, not give a monkey's hoot about the back end, and just get the best possible picture they can do. And they've automated that whole process, and the Google process is for Mr. Average. And this is for the Sony specialist person that will really appreciate manual controls like you and I.
Yeah, and even tapping into the whole vlog thing, where they've got this vlog monitor and vlogging sort of tripod-y type holder jobby for the phone, to be getting the most out of the camera. They obviously realise that. Last night I went out for dinner with my wife, and we were walking down along the seafront, and I saw about 4 people doing pieces to camera. There was a collection of caravans that people had driven down there, and they were all out taking selfies, and one person was walking along doing a piece to camera, the others were all doing selfies. This is what those people are looking for, and there must be a larger majority that have the need for all of these intricate devices to put onto the side of your camera or your phone to be able to blog and vlog easily. It must be much, much bigger than I anticipated.
Yeah, this is something that's come over from the Pro I, isn't it? But look at that, the quality of and I've said this for decades about the quality of the Sony gear. They just seem to make things nicely and properly. A bit like Canon used to make cameras with gorgeous buttons and rounded things, and they just look as though they're, and in this case, are made beautifully well. And you're right, every photograph is really, really attractive.
Yeah. And then you take a step down the ladder and you still have the same rectangular candy bar affair going on with the Sony Xperia 10 IV, which is obviously nowhere near as expensive as the other one, but I think it's still up there a good bit. But it possesses a nice looking camera as well. You get the 12 megapixel wide angle camera, the 8 megapixel 2 times telephoto lens, and an 8 megapixel ultra wide, all in there too, which is really quite nice.
Yeah, the 10.
There's no 4K video recording. That's bizarre.
Yeah, which it was been removed because the previous model, which I reviewed, the 10.3, did have. And the Snapdragon 695 has slightly been increased from the 690, but it's it's in and around there. The OLED screen remains in there. The 6-inch size as well, which is great. There's a lot to like about this version Mark IV of the 10, except that I think that it's probably a bit too expensive. But then you with Sony, as we said just now, you get what you pay for to some degree. The Mark III of the 10 was kind of under 400 quid, and this is suddenly like over 500 quid. So they've marked it up, and there was no mention of the 5 Mark IV at all. So no one seems to know what's happening with that, or whether this 10 Mark IV is creeping the 10 up to take the place of the 5, so that when it comes to version 5, I'll say that again. Maybe when we get to the 5th versions of these devices, the 10 will be even closer to the 1, and the 5 will just be gone. I don't know. But whatever it is, I'd like to see Qi charging on the cheaper model. It would be really cheap for them to add. I don't know why they just don't do it.
Would the Pro 1 maybe push the 5 out as well? Instead of having those 4 devices, I suppose there's a 10 Lite as well. Or no, they
that 10, it was only released in Japan, wasn't it? It was,
okay.
It was a bit of a local thing. But
for them to take it down to just 3 models, where you've got the 1, the 10, and the Pro I, or the Pro 1, if you like.
Yeah, Pro I.
Okay, those 3 devices could basically cover the range. Although having no 4K in the 10.4 would be, I don't want that's.
Is that big for you?
Belief. What?
Is it? I thought everyone was kind of ignoring that to some degree and shooting in 1080p anyway. Probably not you though.
No, I like the 4K option to be able to do that, and especially with the 1.4. Did it say it was doing it at 120 frames per second? I think I noticed somewhere.
I'm not sure. No.
I did read something this morning was doing 120 frames per second in 4K.
Let's have a look.
It might not be this. It might be something else we're coming to.
Okay, I'll have a look. Video.
No, I don't see it. No, it mustn't be this.
No.
Okay. Well,
anyway,
we'll reserve that for something else.
Really nice devices, I think. And I've got my SIM card back in on the back of this. My SIM card's back in the Xperia 5 Mark II, and I'm enjoying it all again and remembering how good this Sony stuff really is. So good for them, I say, even if it is really expensive.
Yeah. No, it's a good range, I suppose, to have. But they're also doing, you touched on them last week, the new headphones as well, the XM5s are coming.
Yeah.
Is there anything to note about them?
Well,
is there anything you want to add to it?
I was saying last week that I don't like the design of them over the ones that I've got, the XM4s, and I stick with that really. The other thing that people have noticed since they've launched the XM5s is that they don't fold back on themselves, so they're actually difficult to transport in a small package, which doesn't matter to me. I never take mine anywhere anyway, but for some people that'll be a big thing. And then there's all sorts of, technical advances and stuff that they've improved, and noise cancelling's better. And if you don't put the noise cancelling on, you can get 40 hours out of the battery. If you do, then it's 30 hours, and etc. etc. If you dig into the kind of technology behind it all sounds really, really impressive. But frankly, I prefer my XM4s. I think that they sound amazingly good, that I don't particularly need to go up to amazingly good plus.
Yeah. Okay.
And what are they, 450 quid, is it? No, 400 and something quid, aren't they? So they're not cheap.
I'll stop everything here. I'm not losing my mind. The Sony Xperia 1 4 signature speed at its core. The has a triple lens that can record 4K HDR up to 120 frames per second.
That
You
was
read it
the
somewhere.
1.4, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Not the 10.4, which they've taken it
No.
away. Yeah.
Yes, which is bonkers again. Silly
Yeah.
nonsense.
So are you going to get an XM5 set, or did you get an XM3 or 4?
No. I went and got new cushions for all of my
Oh, yeah.
Sennheisers, and they're like new headphones all over again.
Yeah.
Only cost me about 20 quid. It's great, and they're all well worn in there. You know, I'm quite happy with them.
What are the price of these thingies? They still fold flat. Oh, $400. How much is $400 in real money? I mean, in English money.
For £350.
Oh, right. Okay, so they're not that much more expensive though. They do look interesting and nice. And as I say, I don't care that they don't fold particularly. But I just somehow prefer the ones I've got, I think.
Yeah, no, I do agree that I suppose it's better the devil you know, and the design of these I don't think is as striking as the ones you have, the XM4s or 3s. I'd much rather have the 4s on my head. Whilst these may sound better, and that's counterintuitive to that, I still think I fancy the 4s more.
Yeah.
And they're going to be cheaper for anyone
Yes.
to go out and buy now.
Absolutely, which we'll come to later.
Yes. Although we do frequently mention the 4s and the 3s in the parking picture.
Yes.
One little one that I thought I'd throw on here as well was that the Sony Wena 3 Ultraman edition is also going to be cranking out fairly soon. This is a limited edition to 1,000 units of a smartwatch that they have that's actually... It's a bit of a strange, it's kind of a hybrid watch. It's got 2 batteries inside it, one to power a regular watch that can last like 3 years, and then there's another little rechargeable battery that will last for a few days that powers the built-in computer side of it, which has Alexa and NFC and a number of sensors for monitoring your heart and things like that. So it's much more of a classy-looking smartwatch that has just some smart features, whilst not being a fully featured smartwatch. I would say that it only has Alexa. It doesn't have Google built in, which I think is another omission that they're making a mistake with there. Had it had Google, I think I would have bought this because it looks fantastic. And I do like the idea of having a more traditional watch with less smart features for the time that you don't want it, or you say you're going away on holiday and you don't want to have to rely on bringing your smartwatch and all of the charging paraphernalia with you. So you just have a watch to go and some smart features if you need them. But it's a very nice looking watch that should retail for about £450.
Wow.
And it has a small OLED display that sits across the device's buckle.
That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, on the underside, and that's where you
Yeah.
speak into.
Wow.
I think that's kind of a fun idea. I like the look of this. I think it looks kind of like a Swiss Aviator watch, but not quite an Aviator watch. It's just got something about it I like. I really do like. And it's got something I don't like about it, which it doesn't do Google. What do you think?
It's just weird. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before until this minute. And the OLED panel if you wear the watch on the top of your wrist, then the OLED panel is going to be, you'd have to turn your wrist around to look at that. So I suppose in actual fact that could make sense, couldn't it? Because if it's then facing you, you would better read it turn your hand round and you better read it, and then turn it back for the normal time. I've never seen anything like it, I don't think. It's a shame. The only thing that I don't like about it is presumably the hands on the mechanical watch side they just look stupid. It's like there's a person diving for the minute hand and a blue star for the hour hand. Is that? It just looks a bit mad in terms of design, and there's nothing you can do about
That's where I quite
that.
liked that it was sort of an Air Forcey type watch, or a aviator type watch with those different hands, something like NASA would hand out to people.
Right. Well, apart from that, I like the back though. I like the buckle thing with that panel. I think that's really good, and I also like the fact that you know if you don't charge it, then you can still use it as an ordinary watch. Looks lovely. I'd never heard of this. The Wena, Wena.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also, I suppose whenever because it's got that back panel on the buckle, whenever you talk into it, you're a bit more like Dick Tracy or something like that, or an FBI agent talking
Yes.
into the cuff of your sleeve.
As long as you are in bed with Amazon, as you say.
Yeah, that's a bit of a mistake there, if you ask me. Okay, so the Sharp Aquos R7 is a new, exciting mobile phone that features a huge 1-inch 47.2, I'll try and read that correctly, megapixel sensor and a 240 hertz AMOLED display. Sharp's not something that we talk terribly often about, but I think the last number of times we've touched on their phones, they've been real head turners, but we don't tend to see them very often. Pray tell, Mr. Salmon.
We don't see them at all. I've never seen a Sharp phone in my life.
I have.
Have you? Was it?
Yes, I had one in for review once.
You weren't in Japan at the time then.
No, I don't think so. I was here. I was
Right.
sitting over there.
I've never seen one, and I thought that this was Japan only, locally rolled out, and the chances of us seeing one are remote. I don't know. I'm happy to be proved wrong if they bring them out. But this Aquos range has gone up from R1 through to 7, and I've never seen one, and I don't think anyone's ever spoken about it. Reviewers on the circuit never review them, and it's just like Japan only. The news here, though, is the 1-inch sensor, which has been tried before on a couple of phones, and it never seems to go very far. You remember the Panasonic one, and there was the 1-inch sensor in the Pro I, the Sony that we were talking about, which wasn't really because it didn't pick up the whole sensor and blah blah blah. I don't know what they're doing with this. It's not a high pixel count, but then if the pixels are big, then it doesn't matter. It'll be gathering lots of light, and just really really interesting. And it's a shame that we're not going to. Well, I suspect we're not going to see it. No indication of pricing, of course, and if you did, you'd have to translate it from yen, I guess.
True, yes. It was a good long time ago we had the Sharp in for review. I think it was with Tracy and Matt at the time, and it was the first time, it was the first Aquos, because they just released that range of televisions as well.
Oh, right.
So it would have been around that time, but maybe they just didn't sell any phones, so they pulled out of the UK, right and quick.
It looks really attractive, though, doesn't it? I like the big camera thingy on the back.
Yeah.
It looks kind of like something else, which I can't put my finger on. Kind of Motorola-ish from back in the day, but oh no, it's the Honor. The new Honor phone has got a big round thing, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, which we'll be coming to later in the show.
Yes.
Okay, so from one end of the spectrum to the other, the Unihertz Titan Slim is getting its reviews. I've got a funny feeling that Mr. Mobile on YouTube as well has reviewed it too recently, but I think people are being quite mean about it. I had a quick look at this review on AndroidPolice.com, and there's an awful lot of cons, but you have to remember this is a $250 phone. And a lot of their cons are sore for that kind of price point. You know, I'm saying that there's no 5G support on a $250 phone. Okay, some things need to be cut out. Bulky and cheap-feeling build quality. It's a $250 phone. What are you expecting? Titanium? And a somewhat sluggish performance. They didn't put any big crowd-pleasing Snapdragons in there. Oh, nuts. And a $250 phone. But it's got a front-facing keyboard that is actually quite comfortable to use. And it's got terrific battery life. So it might actually fit in the hands of the people who are looking for this sort of thing, as opposed to the phone snob out there who wants the best of everything. What do you think? Am I full of crap?
It looks exactly like the Key 1 or the Key 2, doesn't it? Exactly like the BlackBerry Key 1 and Key 2. There's a photograph here of it alongside the Titan Pocket, which I have in at the moment, thanks to a loan from Jim Fowle, one of our group members, and it looks like the keyboard is a similar size. And I've given up very quickly on the Titan Pocket because the keyboard, I can't press the blooming buttons. They're so small. You need a stylus to press the buttons, or have a child's fingers, I think. Now I've got.
Well, why don't you employ a child to send your messages for you? Oh, they can't spell. Gotcha.
And the keyboard is just wonked out. So they've got, like, for example, they've got the Shift key at the top. Why would you put? And I think this was one of the complaints of Mr. Mobile, is that why on earth would you put a Shift key at the top? It's mad. You know, learning how to use this keyboard is relearning the whole way in which you use keyboards. Having said that, you're quite right. At this price, it's great. The only concern that I have, as I had with the Titan Pocket, is the ongoing support. The Titan Pocket is on Android 11. It's just been released. Well, not just been released, but it's been released on Android 11, the same as this one is. But it's already back on December 21 Google security. And the track record that Unihertz have for updating their devices is just awful. It's rubbish. And you buy this device for your cheap $250 and you expect to be able to use it for, I don't know, a year or two before you start getting really naffed off that it's been abandoned and left behind, which means that any stuff that Unihertz have put in it themselves, presumably, they won't update either. It's a shame, because I think there is a place for a keyboarded device if you can press the keys, and BlackBerry left that hole behind. But Unihertz, this manufacturer, I don't have a great deal of confidence in. Would you buy one?
Well, when it comes to the keyboard, anyone who's entering this system is obviously going to have to learn how to use it. The Titan Pocket has the same keyboard as the Titan Slim, so that makes the Slim the logical update for anyone who has the Titan Pocket.
Yes.
You're not going to have to relearn the keyboard at all. So, great.
But you will. But you will have to relearn it to start with, from the fact that the Shift key is down the bottom. That's
very true.
You know, it's universal.
But obviously going forward, if they do another device again, they're going to keep the same keyboard again. So people who enter the system are being incentivized to upgrade to the Slim because their Pocket, which was another cheap device that they got a year or two out of, are probably going to move to the Slim because it may be a slightly better form factor for them. And then they'll get the newer version of Android, and it'll be like whenever back in the 90s you moved from the little Samsung the flip phone you had to another phone that you didn't pay a huge amount of money for, because again, this is quite a cheap phone. And I think whilst it doesn't really help the world in its recyclability and trying to keep people in devices for a good amount of time, it means that it's fairly easy for someone to swing from one phone to the next and actually upgrade their hardware on an annual basis to a new phone that they're not going to have to go through that whole nasty learning experience again that they've already gone through. I'm trying to be positive about it because I appreciate that they kept the same keyboard layout to the previous one, so that anyone who was it John you said, who bought the Pocket, isn't going to have to go through too much to be able to upgrade to this, and it is the logical step for them.
Yeah, Jim it was. But I do agree. If you're going to get into bed with them and stay with them, so it's a bit like, it's like the Oppo, isn't it? Learning, I was saying about the Oppo Find X3 Pro, and one of the big things for me is staying in bed with them and learning where all the bloomin' stuff is in settings, because it's haywire, mad where stuff is. But if you were sticking with them, you would learn that. So yeah, fair point.
Yeah, and you kind of look forward to what are they doing next, and is it going to cost $250? Then quite happily I'll move to that. This is a great upgrade to whoever bought the Pocket.
Very positive. The two sides, the bad cop and good cop here, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens going forward. It's nice to also have another company to look at,
yes,
as opposed to the big three or four.
Definitely.
and also it's a front-facing keyboard, something that people don't do often enough.
Yeah.
All right, Ted, you can go and get really excited and positive about a new Bluetooth speaker, can't you?
Yay! This is the Soundcore Motion Boom Plus. I've always threatened to buy the Motion Boom, and I never did because I've got too many Bluetooth speakers. But this is the Boom Plus. It's bigger and better and louder, and it's got 30-watt woofers and 10-watt tweeters, and it's completely waterproof, and it's got titanium drivers and bass up and Partycast. Here, listen to this. You can wirelessly link up to 100 speakers. So if you go to a party and there's 100 other people with you that have got similar stuff, you can hook them all up together and blow your brains out. It looks really good. I really fancy it. It is physically bigger though. It's got a 13,400 milliamp hour battery, and they reckon it will do you 20 hours of runtime. That's probably on medium volume, to be fair. Bluetooth 5.3 I don't think I've seen before, so I don't know where that's come from, and I'm not sure what that adds, but anyway, there you go. And the interesting thing here is that they're pre-ordering this out at $189.99, but you can, if you're like me, put a £1 deposit down, so when it comes along in the autumn you can get the reduced price of £127.99. I did put the so you save 60 quid basically. I did put the £1 down. I'm not sure that I'm going to buy one, to be honest, but I thought it was worth the quid in case lots more information comes out about this and I really, really fancy it, then I can get 60 quid off. But I thought it was, the gamble of £1 was worth it probably. I really fancy it. Do you? But think of your barbecue and this out. You want me to talk to anyone?
No, I've got my little waterproof Sony that sits beside me whenever I'm barbecuing. I can play on that. I have Bluetooth speakers for every eventuality, although they're all micro USB. And I was thinking about this the other day. I don't have a USB Type-C one. However, there was one thing that you picked up that I've been meaning to mention for a couple of weeks since I did it, and I keep forgetting to. And I'm going to do it now because bloody hell, I've forgotten for loads of weeks. You know the way you get two Google Minis, and you can pair them via Bluetooth so that they'll play as a stereo set.
Oh, yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Right? So I put one on one side of the bed, one on the other side of the bed, and I can sit and I can listen to an audiobook, I can listen to some music, or watch a film and have the sound coming over those on my tablet. It's really cool the way that happens.
Yeah.
Where it falls apart is that we use broadcasts quite a lot to say, call my son down for dinner, where you say broadcast, hey, broadcast to such and such a room, and it comes down. And he comes down after he gets that broadcast. But if someone else broadcasts to, say, the bedroom to ask me a question, those two minis don't sync up. So you get one playing a fraction of a second faster than the other, or ahead of the other, so you can't actually make out what was said. So then you have to get up and go and say, what did you say? That was just garbage that came through on that. So it's just an interesting thing that whenever you link things together, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work nicely.
Well, to be fair, that's probably Google's fault, isn't it? And their software, not Sony's. Because I've been doing what you've just been describing, but not having any home stuff, clever stuff going on, or family stuff going on, and the stereo thing works perfectly.
I suppose Google does need to sort out the whole synchronization thing. I don't think they've ever focused on that at all. You know, sometimes whenever my wife comes home, she'll broadcast to the house, Gareth, can you please come out and open the gates for me? Because we don't have motorized gates. That's one day that'll happen. And I'll get the one in the kitchen, the one in the living room, the two in the bedroom, all broadcasting at the same time. It sounds like I'm just being invaded by my wife. And it's psychologically damaging as this chant comes down about the gates. Yeah, it's scary. Yeah. But yes. But this is a good-looking system.
But you're right, that is good, and you can do that with Soundcore. It's a separate company, you know. It's not Anchor at all. You can do that with Soundcore Motion. My Motion devices I've got here, I did that with specifically, and I've got those two little Sony ones, and it's great to lay in bed or to sit on a chair and have that stereo working properly. It's a real good thing to experience. But yeah, I really fancy the look of this. Don't need it, and I probably won't buy it, but I really fancy it.
Yeah, no, it looks really nice, and it's something that you can take with you and throw around. Kids will have great fun with this on the beach.
Indeed.
In a sunny, sunny summer. Right, SanDisk have some modular SSD storage solutions, and I had a look at these. They look kind of fun, but a bit expensive for what they are. You can put your NVMe or SSD into them and take them out on the go, or connect them all together, and they're tough. They can take a beating. You can have 4 SSDs driven over by 10-ton trucks, and they'll survive. That kind of thing. Ted, do you have a particular reason why you're excited about these, or is it just because SSDs mentioned?
I put it in here because I thought you would know all about it, frankly. And I also didn't really quite understand. I get the rugged stuff about it. So these are designed for people that are out on the road, like creators of content or something, and they want to store their stuff safely, and you can put them together so they stack neatly, and they're supported by USB-C. What's that? What does that mean? 20G. Underneath USB it says 20G.
20 gigabyte per second.
Oh, is it?
Gigabit per second.
Okay. Yeah, one of those two.
No, I thought about it this time whenever I read it out.
So I was hoping that you would either dismiss this from the show notes, or kind of focus in and say, "Oh yeah, that's good," but obviously not.
No, I do like it. I love the idea of there's 3 different things here. There's the SSD mag, the transport portable SSD enclosure, and then the desktop SSD enclosure. And obviously the desktop one you leave at home, which has a bunch in there, and then you can hook up to the transport one and the mag to sort of take it with you if you're operating an office and you've got a bunch of photographers that go out and they need to take an SSD with them to save stuff, if they're going to, say, Google I/O and have lots of videos and pictures to take. And it all goes back there, and it'll be more likely to survive the craziness that goes on at Google I/O, and come back and then just click in and share.
So each of those things can be up to 4 terabytes by the looks of it. But you say they're not cheap.
No. There's a 1 terabyte one, which is around about £150. The 2 terabyte one, this is for the SSD mag. The 2 terabyte one is about £250, and then there's a 4 terabyte for about £450. So they are up there, and then the drive in the desktop SSD enclosure doesn't actually list the price of it, and I think it's coming out later. Yeah, they're going to be doing the enclosures first, which are coming out next month, and then the desktop SSD enclosure is going to be available late in 2022. So there's no prices for it just yet. It's a nice looking setup, and we have seen them before.
Right.
Made by various different other companies, and you can get ones with different flavors on the front of them. So if you have an SD card, you can stick it in, or micro SD, or the compact flash. There's one for that. There's one for the Red Mini mag. So if you have a Red Mini, you just take the magazine out and shove it in there, and it'll transfer it across to the SSD that's in there.
Oh, I see. So yeah, I think you're right. It's for photographers on the road, isn't it?
Yeah.
Videographers.
Or you could have it on the side of your desk if you feel the need. You're free to do that. They will allow you, but you'll be paying through the news for it.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. So it's kind of sad to notice the news that Apple have quietly killed the iPod, and you've linked to Forbes and their terrible attempt at a GDPR workaround cookies thing, but I'm now into it eventually
Right.
after much of that because I did it on my Chromebook and I have to do it on my desktop. They've done a nice sort of look back at the iPad over the years, and essentially the reason just basically boils down to people aren't buying them anymore. Have you ever seen an iPod in the wild in the last 5, maybe even 10 years?
Would you know? Because it looks just like an iPhone anyway. Sorry, go on.
No, I think there's still they did the Nano and things, didn't they, for a while?
Oh, the little ones, yeah. I think the iPod. I'm talking about the iPod Touch, which is the last surviving one. I think the iPod Touch just looks like a phone, and that was back in the day, like 15 years ago or something like that. 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I can remember getting an iPod Touch because I wanted a media player. I didn't want something that was also a phone, and at the time, and I didn't really want an Apple product, but at the time I couldn't find one that did all the stuff I wanted it to. There was one device that Samsung released, just one off, and it disappeared again, and that was a Samsung phone but without the connectivity, and I can't remember what number it was or what name it was. But it had a very short life, and it was gone again. And the iPod Touch was the only way you could do this. I don't want a phone. I just want everything else of a smartphone ecosystem, and I wanted it on Android. But if you were into the Apple stuff, then this was a good solution. It was cheaper, and you could give it to your kids as well. They get connected. It's Wi-Fi only, so you could control it. I think the iPod Touch was a good device, and I remember us talking about the iPod Touch about a year back or something, and I was amazed that they were still selling them. In fact, if you went to the Apple website, you had to search in the search engine to find the page for it. It wasn't advertised on there at all. But yeah, sure enough, they were still for sale, and you could buy them. But if Samsung had continued with that, I think that they would have been all right with it. But they're all concluding that everyone will just buy a phone anyway, won't they?
Yeah. I went looking for that because I remembered the Samsung you were talking about because it was gorgeous, really was a beautiful device, and it was in that Galaxy S range that they released. It's the Samsung Galaxy S MP3 player.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you have one?
No, I didn't, but I
Right.
remember it coming out and lusting after it. But I bought the 8.4 tablet that was of the same design.
Right.
I still have it because I think that design was just gorgeous. It was just a beautiful design. A bit plasticky, mind you, but it looked good on paper.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I ever had an iPod Touch, and I don't know anyone that has had them recently. But I do understand that people do have the need for a completely disconnected device, especially whenever they're fitness training or something like that. So was it Harry Mary put a post on MeWe today or yesterday about what the need for a dedicated MP3 player, and whether or not we should continue to have them. And Sony still does a few, and if you go onto Amazon, you can find a decent amount of them available. But they just don't have that system that you're familiar
Some
with.
of them
and
do.
I think that's what
One
people
of the Sony ones is built around Android 9. And again, I can't remember the model number, but if you fire that up, it's just like having an Android system, and you can do stuff on Wi-Fi with it. But
then you can't put it into iTunes.
why would you want? Yes, you can. You can install iTunes on it if you want to.
Oh, can you?
Yeah. iTunes, Apple make available to Android the iTunes app, so you can use that if you want to. But I don't know why you'd want to, really, unless you were in the Apple ecosystem.
If you're in the Apple and you don't want to take your iPhone to the gym, you rely on your dedicated MP3 player, so you're not going to be bothered whilst you're doing your intensive workout. Working out those pecs. You've got your iPod. So losing that, you then have to turn your phone off. And remember to turn your phone off.
Well, one of the answer to your question is that yes, some of these standalone media players also run Android, and they've got they've got access to the Play Store, and you can install any apps you want. So that does happen to a degree, but they all have their downsides. Like, for example, the Sony one, which I was thinking about buying a while ago. They say that the battery life, as soon as you turn Android on and enable it, which because you can wrapper it out. You can not use it in that way if you want to. And they say as soon as you turn it on, the battery life is just appalling. And I think FiiO, FIIO.
Yeah.
They make some standalone media players which have also got Android, I think, on them. So you can do it, but it's just really niche and expensive usually. And the iPod Touches were cheap. They were, if you were in the Apple system, they were very. If you didn't want a huge storage one, they were really cheap.
Yeah. Well, they were, and they could obviously share some of the apps that you may own in iTunes as well, that you might want on there. So you may have MyFitnessPal or Runkeeper, or I'm maybe showing my age with fitness apps. There's certain ones that you tend to favour over others.
Yeah, or Angry Birds.
Yes.
Yes.
I suppose I do have some apps that I have bought in the past that are in my Apple library.
Yeah. So
that I never ever use now.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have bought an iPod Touch.
Yeah.
While I could.
A bit late now.
It is.
Well,
but obviously this has been.
They'll be all over Amazon for a while yet, won't they?
Yeah, they will. Yeah. But I'd love to know what the figures were, because obviously they've just gone right. Okay, well, as soon as we sell less than 1,000 in a year, then they're done.
Yeah.
And they must have just dropped off under 1,000, and they've gone right bye. See ya.
I think just that they think that everyone's going to buy a phone, and the cheaper that the iPhone SE series are, what, 300 and something quid, aren't they? I don't know. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. But you can now get a cheap iPhone. And they're just saying, well, if you want to go to the gym, then put it in airplane mode. The things that you said earlier, put it in airplane mode, and you've got an iPod Touch. So what's the problem?
Yeah. True. But you still get notified. You get interruptions.
No, you don't. Not in airplane mode.
But you still could have things set up in your calendar and stuff that are going to bleed through, like, as opposed to being totally focused. And if you hear a bell, you're going to go, what was that?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, and you don't want to have to buy another phone in order to have a completely cut off network. Right, okay. Speaking of networks, 3 and Vodafone, there are unconfirmed reports that a merger is being considered. Now, earlier in the year, I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but I remember talking about it at some point. Vodafone was kind of counting their pennies to see if they could buy 3 and if that would happen. And I don't think they have enough pennies, so they're 27p, I think, was what 3 is currently worth. Vodafone is looking to merge with them, so that will be the third and fourth largest UK mobile operators merging together. Now, we've already had a merger before of Orange and T-Mobile to create the largest, which is EE, and I believe O2 is under that, which is now combined with Virgin Media. So Vodafone and 3 would make a sensible solution for them to connect together, and then eventually we'll have just one whenever someone decides to buy it out, and we'll be scuppered.
That's the trouble, isn't it?
Bit of an odd pairing is 3 and Vodafone, because I think historically Vodafone's always been the very expensive mobile company to go with, and 3 has always been the really cheap one to go with. I know, because I went with 3 for many years, and only recently I've moved over to Vodafone. And I'm paying an awful lot more for what I got from 3 for an awful lot less. But I get service in the home, so that makes a bit of a difference too. But it'll be interesting to see what Vodafone actually do, whether they restructure their prices, or if they just restructure 3's prices to match up with that of Vodafone's. What do you think?
I don't know. I think for the consumer, this definitely has advantages. Like, if there's one network covering the whole of the UK, everyone gets access to everyone else's masts and the coverage is blanket, then suddenly it's fantastic because you just got everything you could possibly get in terms of coverage. On the other hand,
So everything everywhere.
exactly. Um, on the other hand, it doesn't really do well for competition, does it? The way in which consumers benefit in another sense is through competition and these companies being up against each other and you being able to shop around for the cheapest monthly deal, for example, and if it's all one company for the whole country, then that's going to go away because they won't need to play that game. They can just dictate to their consumers how much they're going to pay or naff off and don't buy it. So I think there are pros and cons to that. In North Wales, I could do with this merger, frankly. Vodafone is not brilliant. It's okay, but it's not brilliant. And 3 here is actually a bit better, I think. And so that would help me, hands down. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I will be a bit hacked off if it goes through and 3 suddenly have access to the Vodafone masts, because I was paying £15 before on 3. Now I'm paying, I think it's 35 on Vodafone, just so I can have service in my house. Because it 7 or 8 years I was with 3, and every time I make a phone call, I get cut off after 2 minutes because it's just I have almost one bar in the house. And I could have just carried on with the 3 contract that I had been on for such a long time. If there was to be one big network, you would still have NVMOs, wouldn't you? The likes of GiffGaff and things like that, who would be able to resale and cut the price.
Right.
And it would be really beneficial for them because they would have great networks that are a great network that they're reselling. Yeah. So you would be able to jump onto those guys instead of the big network. And it always intrigued me how, was it O2 and Tesco? How O2 were happy enough with Tesco undercutting O2's prices by so much, and still happy to let them onto the network. It's weird that existed. But then obviously, that's just sort of Tesco being able to handle their sales department quite well.
What's that about? Because that's the same principle as when you go onto Amazon UK, they often actively encourage you to buy something from a third-party seller, if you've noticed that.
Yeah.
So they're shooting themselves in the foot in the same way as you're describing here. I don't quite understand the sales logic of that.
No, I think it helps with bigger companies being able to do things like mergers. Back in the day, I remember IBM created, was it Ambra? And I don't even know if it was Tandy, I can't remember. Oh, my daughter's phoning me at the moment. They had to create competition. So if 3 and Vodafone were to join forces, they could create NVMOs to be able to, if that's even the right letters, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm a bit distracted by my phone ring.
Would you like me to talk instead of you while you deal with it?
No, it's all right. I've hung up, but I know what she's ringing about,
Okay.
and I told her not to. The NVMOs would be able to undercut those prices, so they still control their own competition.
Right. Yeah,
Hopefully that makes sense.
going back to the Amazon thing, I suppose, you see, on Amazon, you quite often say, you go to look at an item and it says, this is supplied by Amazon, blah, 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 and there's a thing underneath it that says, by the way, you can get this for £3 cheaper if you buy it from here. And then you click through to there, and it's some third-party seller. And you think, well, why are Amazon pushing me to that third-party seller? Maybe it's so that the third-party seller stays on board with them, and they get sales, and they encourage that, and they get a cut of that anyway. And so it makes no difference to them whether they sell it or get a cut from someone else selling it, even if it's cheaper. It all is a bit kind of confusing, I think. Have you dealt with that yet?
well, I do think from the point of view of, say, Tesco, they'll be able to sell a phone and they'll be able to put a contract with it, and they can take a hit on the contract because they're selling a phone.
Yeah.
what was it? I think Tesco was the ones that started doing they were doing really cheap contracts and quite cheap phones, and every time you touched or went to use the phone, you got shown an ad. I knew a fella who bought one, and for £10 more a month, he could get rid of that ad, and he was quite happy just to swipe past it in order to get to the text message that he just received. It's a bit like what Amazon do with their
Kindle,
their tablets. Yeah. So it's all to play for. I think a lot of people would be quite happy with this merger because it will just obviously give them better
coverage,
signal, wherever they happen to be.
Definitely.
I don't know what it means for the 5G. It says the combined entity will accelerate 5G network rollout in the UK. I thought 5G rollout was all planned. There was that much money that was invested into it that it should already have a roadmap, and it shouldn't need something like this to be able to reinvigorate it.
Right. I don't know. It's all speculation anyway. This is a report from a newspaper on a leak, the usual thing. I mean, it might be absolute codswallop.
Yeah. I did notice in one of the articles that it said down at the bottom that someone had typed in, "This is a load of tosh." I work for Vodafone and I've never heard such a rumour. Right, okay. Well, it could be the cleaner or something like that who isn't really privy to all of the CEO discussions. Yeah. All right. So the Redmi 9 and 9 5G are coming to Europe, and they're going to be joined by a little tablet as well called the Pad Mini. I'm guessing you're a bit excited about this trio of hardware.
Not so much the Pad Mini, which I think is really low end, 32 gigs of storage and 3 gigs of RAM. To me, that just seems a bit kind of, I don't know, they're pitching that down at the Lenovo end. And trying to compete on that level. But the phones, I had a Realme 8 before at one point, and I seem to remember I quite liked it, except, like I was saying with the Oppo earlier, with regards to their layer of software, which is really confusing. Snapdragon 680, which is fine, it's really good. As far as I'm concerned, 108 megapixel main camera, which they didn't need to do, an LCD screen, and that same Unisoc T616 chipset on the Mini. Sorry, we've jumped back to the Mini here again, which is forget I said that, and the I'm getting really lost here. 6.6-inch screen, right?
Why is my stepdaughter phoning you now?
There's a bloomin' lawnmower going past my window, which is distracting. But anyway.
Oh, I can hear it, actually.
That is so annoying. Go away. Realme 9 5G has got what I just said was the Realme 9 vanilla. The Realme 9 5G is on the Snapdragon 695, which is the same as the aforementioned Sony Xperia 10 Mark IV, if you remember. And so that's interesting. A 6.6-inch LCD with 120 hertz refresh rate, 5,000 milliamp hour battery, 18-watt charging, Android 12 out of the box. Hurrah! And the aforementioned Realme UI 3. Now, I've only tried Realme UI 2, so I don't know whether or not that'll be good or bad or better, but it was confusing for me before. And a side-mounted fingerprint scanner, which is great. They're coming back. Have you noticed that? Apart from on flagships, they seem to be coming back. Even the aforementioned Sonys are keeping it, and other medium to top-end models, like some of the Motorola devices, for example, they are now coming. They could easily put it under the glass, and they're not. They're putting it on the side, which is great. So those are the two phones. I'll leave you to talk about the Pad, though.
Okay. Yeah, there's a Pad. No, it's got a 6,400 milliamp hour mega battery. Not just a regular battery. This is a mega battery.
Yeah.
I don't know why they've decided to put that in either. But it's got an 8.7-inch large display, which is kind of nice. It looks like a decent little tablet. I think we talked about it in the past.
Did we?
Which is... I think we did. Yeah, I remember us lusting after a small tablet that was within the Realme ecosystem, because it would have that PC launcher thing that they've put in as well.
Right.
Hopefully, maybe. But there's one refreshing number that I'm liking seeing at the moment, and that's that it's got up to 7 gigabytes of dynamic RAM.
That's odd, isn't it?
7 is an odd number to have.
Oh
in
no,
there,
that's
but,
not. That's not the pad. That's the phone.
It is, yeah, but it's just nice to see 7
Yeah.
gigabytes instead of the standard 6, 4, and 8.
Yeah, definitely.
4, 6,
That's
and 8.
really odd.
Yeah, but I suppose it's a wee bit different in this dynamic RAM as opposed to RAM.
I'd like to see Realme UI 3 though, because as I say, I only saw the 2 version and I got really hacked off with it. I seem to remember, but maybe they've improved it, which they do. You know, the Oppo Color OS 12, I was really impressed with, whereas the last time I looked at that, it was, I just hated it. But they've vanilla-ized it, if that's a word.
Yes. Well, there's one thing that does annoy me about the Pad Mini, and I'm just seeing here at the very, very bottom of the article, is that the Wi-Fi only version is going to be 3 gigabytes with 32 gigabytes of storage.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the LTE version is going to have 4 gigabytes and 64 gigabytes of storage, which is a bit of a pain in the derriere. That's woefully underpowered for the Wi-Fi only version. But at the same time, it's only €180, so that'll probably be about, maybe £200 whenever it arrives here, if it does arrive here.
I didn't see the pricing down there. So the Realme 9 is €280, and the 5G version is €260. It's cheaper. Oh, it's got less storage and less RAM.
Yeah,
okay.
4 and 64.
May the 17th. So they're just about to be released on the shelves with a matching £250 price point. So
You going to buy one?
no, I'd like to get one into review though, because I'd like to see, as I say, the software again. But no, I wouldn't buy one myself.
Okay.
Give
We'll
me
see
a
if Realme,
Motorola.
maybe Realme are listening to the cutting edge of UK tech podcasts, and they will get in touch and offer you one.
Yeah, hurrah!
Yeah. Hopefully they listen to the phone show. Okay. The Nokia N73. This is a rumoured device going forward. But Ted, what are we to be excited about with this strange-looking...
A wild rumour.
Yeah. It's got a crazy camera on the back.
This is complete speculation, and it's probably just some graphic designer that's decided to put a graphic together. But that is really eye-catching, the design. The N73, which was a phone from like about 12 years ago, I think. 2006 it was. And they reckon this person reckons that Nokia are working on this flagship with penta camera like the Nokia N PureView had. No evidence of this. It's pure speculation. The reason I focused in on it really was just because it looks so lovely, and that graphic designer, whoever it is, has done a fabulous job, and I really fancy it just because of that. The camera cluster looks just lovely. Someone needs to pick up that design. If this is not real, which I think it's not, someone needs to pick up that design and run with it because it looks lovely.
But there's 5 image sensors there and 2 flashes. I think the company that does run with it will probably go, we don't have that many cameras. But we could just install bits of glass.
But that's what the Nokia 9 PureView had. That was the point, really, is that they were...
Oh, right.
And also, this dreamer is saying that it's going to have the Samsung 200 megapixel sensor as the main one as well. It's quite funny, really, but and I'm sure it's not true, because previously recently HMD Global have said they're not doing this. They're not keeping up with the big boys. We're not getting into, in their own words, a massive spec war with other players. They're comfortable where they are, and they do that mid to low end thing well, and they're making money. They're doing really well out of it. Particularly, I read this week in the American market, they're up and growing in America quite big, quite well. So they're not going to just screw this by putting out this. I do not believe. Do you?
No, I don't. But it's fun, and I like the idea that the person who's put this together has just gone the extra mile and basically put down their wet dream of a phone. You could do that too, Ted. You could open up Microsoft Paint and draw yourself a wee phone and go, oh wow, it's going to have this, and this.
Very nice. I want one anyway.
Yeah. All right. One thing that I'm sure you do want is the Honor Magic 4 and not Honor Magic 4 Pro. We mentioned it earlier in the show because it's got a huge camera on the back, a big round camera, and it really looks the biz. This is their flagship. It's got tons of specs inside, including the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 with a 4,600 milliamp hour battery. It's got a high-res display on an OLED panel at 1312 by 2848. It's 120 hertz at that. Running around looking for more specs to dazzle you with. It's got a 100-watt charging brick that it comes with in the box. Get that. Although looking at the picture, the pin looks a bit bent.
The news about the 100-watt, though, is that is also wireless charging. So if you can find or pay for an expensive 100-watt Qi charger, you'll also get that across Qi.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a novel bonus.
Yeah.
Probably cost you. Why is not one not in the box?
159 quid they were quoting, I think.
Blimey.
Yeah.
To save you the anguish of having to plug a cable in. Grief. Okay, so it's got a 50 megapixel f1.8 main camera with optical stabilization, laser and phase detected autofocus, and an optical stabilization, which I've already said. I don't know why they're putting that twice. Maybe it's just got two. It's better. It's got a second 50 megapixel sensor that covers ultra wide, and it doubles as a macro camera as well. There's a 90 millimeter 3.5 times periscope zoom and a large 1/2.0 sensor and an f-stop of 3.5 aperture. Blimey.
The 3.5 times optical zoom there is the news, but periscope telephoto.
That's a half-inch sensor. I don't know why I said 1/2.0 half sensor. Sorry.
Try and keep up at the back. The 3.5 times optical zoom is the news there. But normally when they say periscope, it's going to be down a tunnel, isn't it? If it's a periscope, so that's going to be. I can't see on the back of the phone from the picture where that is or where it's going, but there's supposed to be a tunnel in there somewhere. It looks really nice, doesn't it? It's going to be 1,100 euros apparently, but it looks like it's. Well, it's got an ultrasonic under-glass fingerprint scanner. Now, in my experience with the Samsung ones, I think they're really good. Face ID to support it, so that's okay. It's got no 3.5mm and it's got no micro SD card slot, but there are storage variants up to 512 gigabytes of RAM and 12 gigs of RAM. So there's lots to like here. Stereo speakers. But there should be, shouldn't there, at that price? If you're paying, they're mixing with the big boys here. Honor, 1,100 quid.
What exactly does mixing with the big boys mean?
It's not quite as much as Sony, but they're up there. And also, this is a 6.81 inch screen, which is like Nokia territory, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's an awful lot of phone. I'm not sure about what I like whether I'm going to like the sound of Magic UI 6, but like we said before, you get used to it if you keep it, I suppose.
It does have it's got a dual selfie camera on the front, which has like a pill-shaped cutout, which I think is a wee bit distracting. I think that's a bit much. I would have liked that to be actually built into a border or a thingy across the top, a bar across the top.
Oh no, it's not. That is, according to the specs, that's a one camera and one time of flight 3D depth biometric sensor. So maybe that's so you're doing something clever with biometrics.
Oh yeah. A 3D time of flight sensor and
Yeah.
biometrics for depth of data. Right. Okay.
Maybe you can use it for fingerprint scanning or heart rate. Perhaps you put it on your chest.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
Gotcha. Right. It's very nice, but I still think Honor are pricing themselves out of the competition here, because I went to Honor whenever I wanted to pick up a really nicely featured cheap phone.
Yeah.
And this is way too expensive. I'm not going to be spending my money on Honor hardware for that level of money. No way.
No. Well, unless it comes out and gets reviewed and is raved about, and it's like the best thing since sliced bread. One feature I'm not sure if you mentioned, but I glossed over, was the battery, which doesn't look very big at all. I know that 4,600 milliamp hour is not a rubbish battery, but when it's driving a fast refresh OLED screen, and a big screen at that, and loads of RAM going on and stuff like that, I think that's going to not be terribly great. I would have liked to have seen that 5,000 or above, I think.
Yeah, but even having a look at that, the Honor Magic 4 is around about £700, but the light version of it is £350.
Right.
Which is, well, I don't know. That's quite a significant step down.
What's the
and
difference?
I think that's
Magic
I don't have
4 Ultimate. There's also an Ultimate. The Magic 4
blimey.
Ultimate, the Magic 4 Pro, Magic 4 Lite, and the Magic 4.
The Lite has the Snapdragon 695 inside there with 6 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage. 48 megapixel camera. 4,800 milliamp hour battery, fast charging up to 66 watts. That looks like a really good. That's a really good phone on paper.
Right.
I'd much rather have that for the money than the £700
and the
Magic 4.
The Magic 4 has got the Pro's got the 3.5 times optical, and the Magic 4 has got a 5 times optical. So there's some screwy stuff going on there. I think what you're paying for with the big one is the 100-watt cabled and Qi charging. That seems to be what. Do you agree that where the money's going?
I think so, yeah. And also to have a power adapter in the box.
Yeah.
Everything included. Yeah, there's a Magic 4 Ultra. Wow. That's a biggie. Big boy. All right, well, we'll move on because time is a-ticking. And we're about to get into Flap Your Trap at an hour and a half into the show.
Uh-oh.
Great. Okay, first up is a crap sound recorder for Windows 11. Tell us about this.
I don't know about it because I can't make it work. I don't see it at all in Windows, so it's something that's coming. And I did wonder if it was going to render the likes of Audacity, which we use for podcasting, redundant, if Windows 11 is going to make their own. I can't imagine it, because I can't imagine it being as feature-rich as Audacity, which has had decades of development and evolution. So, I don't know. We'll have to wait to see it though, because it's not on my Windows 11 yet. Is it on yours?
I'm not even going to bother looking
Okay.
for it, given that Microsoft have a terrible time managing your audio devices at the best of time. How many times have you had to go and fix settings in order to get to record a podcast because they're not where you left them the day before? I can't say I would trust Microsoft with recording my voice. Although I do remember Sound Recorder app of late, back in Windows 95 territory. It was a very useful little device. But nah, I think I'll leave that alone. I'm even thinking about leaving Microsoft altogether if Steam were to get their act together and get Linux up and running nicely. Mozilla Thunderbird. Now, I know you're one of the 4 people that still use Mozilla Thunderbird, but they've made a few announcements about it recently. 2 I can count on my hand.
The one that this article is about is that they're going to eventually, 10 years later, develop a mobile app so you could be able to use it on your phone. It's obviously not going to store all your stuff on the phone, but you'll be able to use it and access it in the same way as you could with Gmail on a phone, or indeed any other device that you can install an Android app on. And I don't know if they're going to do it on iOS as well, but maybe. and it's just a front end to what you're doing. The advantage for me with Thunderbird is to have it on a computer and make sure you've got a backup of all of the stuff in any other client that you happen to be using, particularly if it's a cloud-based one like Gmail, and trusting Google or trusting Apple or wherever with all of your data from all of your email, or whether you want to keep your own copy. To me, that's the basis of Thunderbird. I don't particularly want an Android app, whatever device it's on.
Yes, well, it's also coming to Chromebooks as well.
As an Android app.
Yeah, it'll be on there too, which is a really nice little option.
Okay.
So,
Very good.
Cool. I look forward to that. I can't remember the last time I used Thunderbird, but maybe. Dolby Atmos is coming to podcasts. Obviously, it'll make us sound so much better. But I think this is more directed at the drama-type podcasts that people like to put together, which are really good. I do recommend you go and have a look at them, because they're like the old radio plays that you used to get back in the 1940s, but so much better.
Yeah, right.
But they can use Dolby Atmos as well to really get you in the atmosphere of it. And they're releasing Wondery, which is a first supported platform for Dolby Atmos infused podcasts. Do you know anything about this?
I've never heard of Wondery. They've done this deal with Wondery as if it's a really well-known podcasting platform, and I've never heard of it. Have you heard of it?
Well, do you tend to listen to podcast dramas?
Is that what it is? Is that they focused in on one that specialises in that? Have they? Not just.
Well, I think that's the majority of what they do. I believe I had a quick look at them, and I've heard of them before, because we were putting together, myself and Alan and another pal were looking to maybe do a podcast drama type thing, and Wondery was one of the platforms that we were looking at to put it out on.
Premium podcast.
And,
listen now with Wondery Plus. Never heard of it.
Yeah. It's another subscription service if you're into these sorts of things.
Right.
But I don't know that they're... I do think they are obviously popular enough to open up a subscription-type site that looks very glossy and nice and well represented when it comes to dramatic podcasts and true crime and all that sort of stuff.
Don't tell Aidan Bell about it. He'll want to put whatever works on it with all his sound effects.
Well, they could do, yes, and also install some drama between the two. A little bit of love interest here and there, that could happen.
Yes.
We'll see. All right, Google Keep is getting some additional features.
7 years on.
Including something as simple as text formatting. This is unbelievable. It doesn't do bold, underlining, or italics.
When they first put Keep out there, they were very clear about the function of it and what it was for, and it wasn't a rich editor and blah blah blah, and it was a simple note-taking app, and they wanted to keep it simple, and it was simple and it's worked really well. But over the time they have added things to it, adding images and background colours and blah blah blah, and now they're adding rich text formatting, so bold, italic, and the usual underlined stuff, which it's not had up to now. So everyone's kind of poo-pooing this news, but actually I think it's quite interesting and different. Well done, Google.
No, I'm all for this. I used Microsoft OneNote for a good amount of years, and I decided I'm done with it because it's just become so big and complicated that I want it to be simple notes. So I took all of my notes and put them into Google Keep and realised that it was a big mess because it didn't have any text formatting, and anywhere that I put some in, it had gone, and things were just garbled nonsense. Well, that's generally what I talk and write anyway, but it just destroyed quite a bit of it, and I had to sit and go through a few things that I wanted to try and rectify, and it was just annoying. I had to take it out of it and put it in Docs instead.
The key to using Keep, I found efficiently, is to use the labels, the same labels that you use, the system you're using Gmail. I know you don't use Gmail, but I've got used to using labels, and using them in Keep is great. All the search stuff works perfectly, and all the rest of it. And this is just an added bonus, really. I'm not sure that I'll use it very much, but it's useful.
No, actually, I'm joining you with that. I've started using Gmail an awful lot more. and all the labels that are included on it. It's quite nice. It's nicely featured. All right, so tell us about some Chrome OS news. What's new and exciting in Chrome OS?
There's an article that I'll link to just really briefly that someone is whinging about Chrome on the Android apps. So what they're saying is that Android app tablets are coming along next year with Google. They're also out there already, but actually they're moaning about the fact that Chrome hasn't kept up with that, and specifically focusing in on Chrome extensions. So in the Android app, whether it's on a tablet or a phone, doesn't have Chrome extensions, and they're saying that it bloomin' well should have. The Chrome side panel, which is available not only in Chromebooks and Chrome OS, but also in other platforms as well, will be you'll be able to make it resizable. I just checked that just now on my Windows computer, and it isn't yet resizable, but it's coming along soon. And I'll keep an eye on that on my Chromebook at all, so that it is actually a Chrome OS thing. And lastly, the phone hub, which is on my Chromebook, will also will soon let you stream your messaging apps to your Chromebook, whatever the app is. They're working with other app developers with an API, I gather, to actually allow people in on that, so that when they start the messaging properly with Chromebooks and the hub, if you're using, for example, Samsung Messages or whatever, you will also be able to get in on that that whole phone hub thing, which, as we know from previous, will also be moving across from Chromebooks into Windows and Mac OS as well. So that whole phone hub, they've got big plans for going forward, and it will feature, I think, as part of the kind of the whole landscape tablet thing as we go forward. So those were my three picks. Any comments?
Well, I'm just excited about the phone hub. That couldn't come fast enough. I really want that, especially with other messages and things. I have complained about it in the past, but I do think Microsoft are streaks ahead of Google when it comes to phone interactions. But I do look forward to whenever Google gets their groove going with that phone hub. Good call.
Indeed.
All right, hark back.
Right, I threatened to do this for ages, and it is the Pocket TV. And I just thought it's time we would do this. And I remember specifically, I've had a few of these in my time, but I remember specifically the Casio TV 470. And I can't remember when it was. I really haven't got a clue. But it was a really nice one, and it was in a chain of of various models I had. Me hanging outside Dixon's windows, kind of lusting after these bits of fun technology at the time. I always wanted the Sony one, but I think it was too expensive always, so I always settled back into Casio. And yeah, basically it's a TV that you put in your pocket. Typically it's got a pull-up aerial, telescopic, and then you try and go somewhere where you can get a bloomin' signal. Because that was always the problem, is that anywhere you were, if you weren't outside somewhere, or in an attic, or on the top of a mountain somewhere, it was just really difficult to get a signal, or sitting underneath one of the masks, I suppose. And I think it was, great fun, but in practice, it was just really difficult to use. Sitting on a bus. I remember sitting on a bus trying to use this, and it was just no signal at all. And then when you do get a signal, you go under a bridge or something, or along a different road, and it's gone again. You turn the thing around, keep turning the aerial around, and it's gone again. Then you try and change channels, and you realise that the channel that you've changed to can't get a signal either. And so my general experience of this was that it was just crap. But it was a really fun bit of technology, and I loved having it. I loved having a television in my pocket. It was great fun. It ran on AA batteries typically, although other ones, I don't think recharging was in by then. But
no.
So you typically were buying AA batteries. Some were bigger than others, some were smaller. The smaller ones I favoured. And I can remember, I can remember sitting on a bus watching an episode of Cheers. on this tiny little screen, and it was just great fun. There's probably not so much more I can say about it. That probably covers it. The tuning in of channels was really difficult. I mean, back then there wasn't very many channels. At the time we probably had 4 channels in the UK, and so you were stuck with those. Not like now. Yeah, I can remember buying. I think it was that Casio that I bought in some dodgy importer shop as well in Tottenham Court Road. Any idea on timescales here? When would this have been? I was really struggling to work out when this all would have been.
92, 93?
Early 90s, yeah.
Yeah.
I really, really loved having though, as impractical as it was and mad as it was, and it used to drink the batteries, so you get about like 2 hours of playtime on the batteries, and if you got a bit more if you put the headphones in and not use the speaker, and the screen was, very, very low resolution, so you could see all the pixels. You get close enough to actually see the thing, and by getting close enough to see the thing, you can see all the pixels. Just fun. That was all. It was great, a great stage to go through with technology, and I really, really remember enjoying myself. Did you enter into it?
Kind of. I think around about 1992 or 93, I had a Sega Game Gear which had the TV tuner. And I remember getting that. I think my dad bought it for me as a gift before we went on holiday. But I was at an age where I didn't really want to go on holiday with my family anymore because I was an adult and I didn't need to do these sorts of things. So he gave me that to plug into my Game Gear, and it never occurred to me going to France all the way down there to the caravan and then plugging this in, putting up the aerial and tuning in, I wouldn't be able to get the BBC or ITV or Channel 4.
Yeah.
I got French channels, and I was gutted. I don't even know that it occurred to my dad either. But I think he wasn't really a techie at all. I don't think he cared at all. He was perusing the wine. Not that he was a drink, but he's not an alcoholic or anything. But he was perusing the wine, as men did. And I was trying to tune in on my crappy headphones, and you got a couple of hours out of 6 AA batteries on that. But I did, whenever I got it back home again, I didn't notice it having too much trouble tuning in. It was a bit like a radio. You got a bit of fuzz here and there, but I think maybe the way that the area of Northern Ireland that I live in is quite well canvassed with TV signal, because we've got Cave Hill and the TV antennas were on top of that, and it kind of broadcast down on us, and we always had a relatively strong signal, so I didn't really have too much of a problem with it, although I didn't use it terribly often because I wasn't any place. I didn't use too many batteries and I couldn't afford the batteries. And I wasn't in a place that I could avail of it that much. Maybe just at night after the folks had gone to bed.
And also, do you remember back in these days, you had to be really careful about which, if you did get rechargeable batteries and went down to Argos and got some, I don't know, what are they called, NIMH or something, or some decidedly dodgy sounding rechargeables, then you couldn't use them in certain items. Whereas nowadays, I've got these Anyloop batteries, and they work in anything. Anything I put them into, they just work. But back in those days, you had to be really careful about which ones you could use and couldn't use. Do you remember that?
Not really. I never really got those. There was a big attachment for the Sega Game Gear, which was a rechargeable battery pack that you could plug in and then take it with you, and it was like a it was like a giant vibrator type thing that would sit out of it. It was huge. Well, I suppose it was huge to my small hands at the time, and that's what I used on the go whenever I went to France to get an extra couple of hours, and then once that was done, I had to go and use my francs and centimes to try and find a set of AA batteries, and my pocket money didn't go too far.
No. You could get power adapters for them. If you went to places like Tandy or whatever, and they had these multi-power adapters with like about 200 little attachments. And the little Casio TV, if you was at home, you could then use it without batteries. But It was out and about that was the most fun.
Yeah, yeah. Kids with Netflix on their phones now have no idea
No
what
idea.
yeah. Lovely, beautiful little mobile portable
Yeah,
TVs.
yeah.
Did you have one, dear listener? Obviously, you may know more than us about it and have more experiences. Maybe you had tried a couple of models over the years. Maybe you've seen Dragnet, where Tom Hanks watches TV on his phone,
Ah.
or no, on his watch. Yeah,
Oh, I've just seen.
he and Dan Aykroyd.
I've just seen the Sony one. It's called the Watchman, as it would be.
Yes, and it's got a tiny screen on
Yeah,
it.
that's really nice, isn't it? That's the one I lusted after and couldn't afford. Anyway, back on track.
Well, it was Sony, so it's got to be
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
All right, the bargain basement. We've got some pretty good deals in here, actually, I think, this week. And Ted, you've been looking into some particularly interesting hardware as well to buy for yourself. And I'm interested to see whether you got yourself a deal, because there's one here that might tickle your fancy, but we'll get to that in a bit. First up, we have the Apple AirPods Max. This is a silver set of Apple AirPods Max. They are on sale on Amazon. They were originally £550 or £549, which I hadn't realised they were.
Yeah, on release.
They're really expensive, but they're down to £368. So if you've been holding off, this might be the time to buy. And I wonder if this is ahead of a new announcement or something like that, perhaps. But I'm also getting 5 monthly payments on these for £73.60p.
Wow, that's cheap, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Is that, mind you, it's only that colour, isn't it? The silver
there's
one.
different colours.
No, the silver one's that price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only the silver one. Yeah. But they're currently in stock, which is something that's novel right now. But I think if you're really looking for a set of these as an upgrade to your AirPods that you might have that you rely on, these are big, comfortable headphones that you could really get a lot out
And
of.
apparently they're fabulous. You know, those that have used them swear by them in the same way as they do with the Sony XM4s, for example. They think they're just great.
They are good looking. I would like a pair of these on my ears. Yeah. What's next?
The Xiaomi Spring Sale, which changes every 24 hours. It's now 1:30 in the afternoon. You need to get here to get this one by midnight tonight. So good luck with that. But then tomorrow there's another deal. So today's hot deal is the Redmi Note 10 5G, 128GB, 4 gigs of RAM, reduced from 209 to 129 quid. Keep your eye on those though, because sometimes those deals are good, sometimes they're not. Sometimes you can get the same prices on Amazon. So yeah, just keep your eyes open.
Yeah. There's a QR code as well to get an exclusive offer and £5 off if you spend £69 or more.
Very good.
Very nice. All right, Ted, you were asking me about monitors, and I went looking for monitors, and I discovered this one over on eBuyer.com, and it's really quite nice. I'm again debating it for myself too. It does lack in one thing that I would require, but Ted, it might suit you down to the ground if you're prepared. It's the LG 34-inch 21:9 ultra-wide full HD IPS monitor with AMD FreeSync. This is a 2K monitor. It's got 2 HDMI, 60 Hz, 5 millisecond response time, and it's on IPS as I mentioned. And it looks really quite nice. It's down in price from £345 to £279, which is a saving of 66 squiddly loops. And it gets glowing reviews from Revo, I think it is, that's connected to this, with 9s and 10s all over the show. I don't think too many people have bad things to say about it.
That's amazing.
What do you think of that?
I'd never, when I was looking for a monitor, I'd never thought about going for a widescreen one like that, but that would just blow my socks off. The reason that I was thinking about this in the week, as I said to you, was because I don't know if it's my eyes. Maybe I need to go for a sight test or something. I've not had one for like 3 years now. But when I look at my monitor, which is a 1080p one, I just kind of start to see the edges of text, and it just seems like it's not quite sharp enough. And I've tried to fiddle about with settings on the monitor and blah blah blah, but the 1080p is the biggest this monitor will go, obviously because it's a 1080p monitor. But my problem with choosing a new one was, as I said to you, not understanding whether my graphics card or my computer, the computer that I bought off Kev Wright, will actually support whatever, whether it's up to it. I think we concluded probably by looking into it that it will be okay, even up to 4K. So a 2K one like this one should be no problem at all. But I must admit it's a bit confusing for stupid people like me.
No, I think they do go after a while. Obviously, I haven't seen your monitor to be able to see what kind of problems you're experiencing, but you do frequently. It gets hot in your van as well, so that might not be one of the best things for it either. But I have an old GNR 4x5 screen that I've had for many years, actually a ridiculous amount of time, because it was the first flat screen I bought. I moved from CRT to this at a point where both my brother and my father came in and went, "Wow, that's unbelievable! Look at the size of it," and it was 19 inches. I'd never seen anything quite like it. It still works, but it does suffer from what you're experiencing. It always looks like it's blurred. It's like double edged on the sharp edges and things. It's weird, but I just put that down to the age of it because I've hooked it up to things from time to time to test them. But going for something new, the price of monitors is so low that you can't really go wrong with something. This 2K for 21 by 9, 34 inches. Yeah. That's dominating.
That might be a really good choice for me, actually.
Yeah, where you went from a 21-inch monitor, you're essentially going to two screens side by side.
Well, except that the 34 inches is the diagonal measurement, and so it's not quite as it seems, is it? Because my one is whatever it is. What is it? It's 16:9, I think. And it's 21 inches. But if you flatten that out, then it's not going to be that much wider, is it?
Well, no, it'll be noticeably wider. You really feel the real estate there. Okay. But whenever you're going up to like the 54-inch ones, that's whenever you sort of feel the wraparound thing where it can go as far as your eye can see when you're looking directly at the centre. But this would be pretty amazing. Yeah.
I'll put that in my to-do list and think about it. I'm not gonna leap on it straight away, but because I'm also thinking to myself, maybe there's nothing wrong with this. Maybe it's all right, and I need an eye test, because I've never had a problem with 1080p before. So I don't know.
Okay, well, do that then. Okay. Yes, and get a nice big pair of national health specs.
There's that Elgato Stream Deck Mark II again on special offer. The white one, they always seem to drop every now and again, and it's currently £24 off, so it's back to that 116 quid mark, 115, 116. And I'm still using mine day in, day out. It's great. I love it. It's really good fun, and it's great for tinkerers of computers.
I think it might have expired. I think it's showing 139 for me.
No. Why did you let me go through all that?
Well, actually, I'd only just clicked on it.
Yeah, you're right.
I went and clicked on the black one to see whether it was down or not.
It's gone. And I keep looking at the XL version, and it just won't drop back down. I missed that when it was 169, and it's constantly 219 now. And I can't. One of these days, when that gets back down to 169, where I missed it before, I shall snap it up. Even more buttons.
Blimey, yeah, I think that's a revolutionising device. I'm not going to take the plunge on it just yet, especially because it's not on the deal that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right, I've got a couple of SSDs to finish me off for this week. The first one is the SanDisk Extreme Pro. This is a 500 gigabyte NVMe M.2 3D SSD. This
3D.
through that.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it does the storage. It doesn't set it in a 2D platter. It puts it into a three-dimensional platter, so it can be faster going up and down and left and right. Yes, the SanDisk Extreme Pro is now down to £46.97, and that makes it a terrific boot drive. It really is super fast, this thing, and it was £54.40. The 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte versions are still quite a bit more expensive at 150 and something 275 or like. But this at this price is a great drive for you to stick Windows on, and then everything else can go on a larger, slower drive as you require it. I thoroughly recommend one of these in your on your motherboard, actually, because that's where they go.
Very nice.
And then to have that other faster drive, you could spend a little bit less and get a nice 1 terabyte one to put into the second NVMe slot on your motherboard for £70. This is down from £93, and it's the WDSN 570 1 terabyte NVMe M.2, and that can house all of your applications and games and things like that. There's a 2 terabyte version of it as well, which is £180. I have seen that down as low as £130, which is what I bought a wee while ago. But it's not at that price at the moment. But 70 quid for that 1 terabyte would be a rather nice addition to the half terabyte SanDisk, and you would be super fast. You press the button and you'd be in your apps before you know it.
Very good, yeah. That sounds that first one, the SanDisk, sounds like I could easily I've got a 256 gig one on my main computer, and not that I feel the need to, but it would be a nice replacement. 46 quid is amazing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But you obviously have to have a motherboard that supports the NVMe
here we go again.
Form factor.
Not only the monitor, but now the SSD.
Well, your computer is a few years old, so there is a chance that it might not have the appropriate ports. It may have one, but it's useful to have, and it saves up a bit of space in your case as well. You can just dump it in the motherboard and forget about it.
Fair enough. Okay. Right, lastly, we've got the Blue Yeti USB microphone, which has done the rounds. I've had 2 of these, I think, in and out again. They're really, really good microphones. They go up and down in price. Currently 35 quid off, so they're 85 quid on Amazon UK, which is just great. It's a fantastic microphone and recommended. And lastly, the thing I mentioned earlier about the Sony Xperia 1 Mark IV, if you pre-order that from Amazon or actually from Sony or anywhere else pretty much, they're chucking in the XM4 headphones that they now don't want because they've got XM5s. So these headphones, which they started off at about 300 quid or whatever, if you desperately wanted a pair anyway, you could get the phone for 1,000 quid, couldn't you?
yeah, okay.
But yeah, that deal seems to be on everywhere, and it seems to be Sony originated, so they can get shot of all their stock, I suppose. But yeah, there you go.
Okay, it's worth mentioning on that Blue Yeti microphone, 5 monthly payments.
Oh, not again. I still haven't got them back, you know.
Huh, wonder why. Yeah. Well, it's only £17.
Amazing. Have you ever used one of those?
I haven't, no.
It's a really good microphone. It makes a fabulously deep, resonant sound when you're podcasting. It's really nice. But
Why don't you have one?
It's a huge lump. I think one of the reasons I twice tried it and sent it back is that it's really, really heavy. Seriously, seriously heavy. You know, when they bring it to you, they bring it in a crate with a crane.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's very solid, and the bass is really heavy and solid. And also, I wanted to not have a bass on my table because I think it was vibrating, whereas I wanted to have a microphone on a stand, not sitting on a desk. But for those that are happy with that on a desk, it's good. You'd like that. Yeah, it's really nice.
I'm just having a look. You get it on the stand, but you can also get the Radius 3 custom microphone shock mount for Yeti, because my shock mount and microphone stand are shocking. every time I touch them, you guys get deafened.
Right.
So you could maybe put them together and do a wee... Is that Gavin? No, I have to buy that up around to 60 quid. No. Maybe, but if it's really heavy, it's going to have its work cut out for it. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of the heaviness is in the stand, to be honest. I think it's...
True. Cast iron or
If you're
something.
taking it off that stand, I think it wouldn't be anything like such a problem. But anyway, it works really well.
Can you buy it without the stand?
I've never
No,
seen it
don't
without
say.
the stand, no.
Right, that must be their big selling point.
Right.
Okie dokie. Well, we'll bring it to a close there because I have 6 missed calls and I need to get to them. Right, yes. So if you want to get in touch with us, you can by emailing us at gareth@techaddicts.uk, and we are on Twitter as well, at techaddictsuk. You can also find me on Twitter as well. That's at Gareth Miles, GarethMyles, and I have my GarethMiles.com. I also now have Ko-Fi because I was tweeted by someone who said they would like to buy me a coffee. And I set it up, and they bought me a coffee.
Right.
It was a bit strange. It's
Ko-Fi.
real, but very, very much thank you to the person. So I have a Ko-Fi.
Coffee. Right.
Yes, I did a tiny amount of research. There was that. There was buymeacoffee.com, and there was Ko-Fi.
Right.
And I opted for the Ko-Fi one because it just seemed to be easier, and other people that I know use it.
I looked at the Buy Me a Coffee one, and I got really confused. When I was setting up my paypal.me/Ted Salmon, where people can buy me a coffee, I had a look at that, and it just looked confusing. And the way in which you got your money out and you got it all organised, just look. In the end, I gave up and went to PayPal and did it that way instead. But yeah, paypal.me/Ted Salmon for me, if you want to buy me a coffee. Everything I do, podcasts and MeWe groups, all route out of the information at tedsalmon.com, so you'll find me there. Thanks very much.
Terrific. And we'll just catch us all next week because this is a long one again. Cheerio.
Goodbye.